A side, B side, what side are you on?
Well, hello. Oh, I didn't do it. Wait, hold on. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome back to another episode of A Side, B Side podcast. How's it going, Adam?
It is good, Brooke. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. This week I didn't take any trips. I was home all week, so no crazy travel stories or anything, but oh man. I did. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I had like 3 videos on my Instagram, like kind of go a little viral.
Oh yeah.
And they were like just kind of your average videos. One was I was at like a place called Barry's last Friday, and a marching band came through, and I was like the unexpected things that happen when you're at Barry's. And that one got like several thousand views. And then another one. Yeah. And then another one, I was at the Salt Dogs baseball game, and this older lady was like knitting
at the game.
And I was like, the things you see at a baseball game. And that one got like 15,000 views.
15,000? Good grief.
Yeah, I know. And then another one I did was like at a local ice cream place. It's called freezing Thai rolled ice cream.
Okay.
And so I like kind of documented them making the ice cream, and that one's got like 7,500 views.
Wow. So
crazy.
When we stop doing the podcast in a month because you're a viral TikTok star, everyone will be ready for it.
I just think it's so funny that like the videos that you try or you like really want, to go viral, it's like, yeah, you might get like 4 views. And then like a lady knitting at a baseball game gets 15,000 views.
Yeah, I mean it's so hard to tell what the algorithm is going to think is worth showing to other people. I love when I'm randomly like scrolling through, and I don't do TikTok because I'm old. I just see the TikToks in their second run when people then port them over to Instagram Reels.
Yeah.
So it's basically like having TikTok just like behind the times. But it's always funny when I'm like scrolling through and I'll just be scrolling through like the random feed, and I'll recognize, not my friend's feed, but just like the regular, like, you might be interested in these. And it's somebody I know. I'm like, oh, hey, good for them. They're on the actual like show to everybody feed. But it's like, it's usually like a video from like 2 weeks ago that I'd already seen. So it's always interesting to see it. Who knows what the AI determines is worthy content, but it's always fun to see.
So have you continued trying to watch She-Hulk?
I have. I saw the second episode. I actually like the second episode more than the first, because we're actually getting into a little story. Like, it feels like the first episode of all these Marvel series, understandably, they spend so much time like establishing what's going to happen. So you really don't get into the actual story until like the second episode. So it seems like there's a little bit of more of a story happening. I'm excited to see where it goes tomorrow, because they're connecting with other things that we've seen, like in Shang-Chi or other movies. So that's kind of cool. They're picking up some plot threads that have been sprinkled here and there and other things. So that'll be exciting to see. I also just binge watched, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but the Star Trek Brave New Worlds, like the newest Star Trek series, which focuses on like Captain Pike and a young crew of the Enterprise before Kirk and Bones and even Scotty show up. And I really enjoyed that. I got into it because of a mobile game I've been playing for years that suddenly had all these characters from the new series. And I was like, well, I guess I'll give it a chance. And it was surprisingly enjoyable. I enjoyed it more than I did Discovery. So that was really nice. And I've burned through the entire first season of Bones now, and we've got to where they start to make changes to the cast and the setting a little bit in the second season. So that's interesting to see, and like plot lines that I totally had forgotten about when you get 7-8 years down the road. So that's pretty good. So I've been keeping busy. Then it's the fall, so all the fall activities are starting. We've got I was lucky enough to sing the national anthem with my son and his choir at the Twins game on Friday, and now fall sports are starting. So we've got cross country meets, and there's like 3 football games tomorrow night. Last night I signed up to do PA announcing for high school volleyball for the fall. So I was able to do that last night. So it's very exciting. This is always, September is usually my favorite month of the year. Just feels like everything's brand new and starting, and I think that's just the school year. And we're getting to weather where like I can wear hoodies and jeans again, which makes my day.
I love hoodies. I wear them year round though, so.
Yeah, I can't. Today even it's not super hot, but it is hot enough that I like was like, okay, well, I'm worried. We're at 88 right now with a high of 90, and I was like, well, I'd love to, I've got all these hoodies I'd like to wear, but I'm like, nope. Even just sitting in my apartment with the sun beaming in through the windows, it's just way too hot. So I'm looking forward to fall weather coming very soon.
Well, I've got an interesting one for you this week. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Last week was I even talked with some people who'd listened to the episode, and they were like, "That was a tough one last week." So I'm hoping we don't have an evil midget this week.
No, he's still evil. It's not. We're actually coming kind of current. We're going north of the border to Canada. And it's so funny because like growing up so close to Canada, you hear about Canadians and they're so not kind of like Nebraska nice. Canadians are always so nice with their A and a boot.
But this guy, can I get you some maple syrup?
Right. And I say this in jest because being in Buffalo is like being in Canada. All my New York friends are like, you grew up in Canada. So,
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, I'm in Minnesota, so we get plenty of the yeah, sure, you betches.
You betcha. Okay, so this week we're talking about Camille Cleroux. Camille Joseph Cleroux was born in 1954 in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Not a whole lot about Camille's early years are known. Okay. So we're going to start picking this up pretty much from his murders. Even like, I couldn't even find like an actual birth date. It's just 1954.
Is when he gets to work.
Is when he came into the world.
Fair enough.
Like on several different sites, it's just 1954. So that's what we're going to go with.
So it's real hard to buy this guy a birthday present.
Yeah. Just, you know what? January 1st. Here you go. Here you go.
Yeah. New Year.
So, like I said, we don't know a whole lot about him. So we're just going to jump into, what makes him a serial killer. His first victim was Lise Roy. So Camille married Lise, 27 years old, beautiful. She was a divorcee with a young daughter, and they married on the 4th of July of 1987. The two of them would end up having a son together. Initially, they were pretty happy, it seemed, but around April of 1990, Lise found out that Camille had been doing something truly disgusting and monstrous. He had been touching her 10-year-old daughter in a very inappropriate way. So the two of them get into a huge argument in the backyard of their home, as would anyone when they find out that someone is doing something so disgusting to their child. They get into this argument. He picks up a rock. He hits her in the head repeatedly.
Good gosh.
Which, of course, kills her. After he kills her, I don't know if it was like a freak out or if it was like a calm, cool demeanor, but he ultimately figured out, I got to get rid of her. So he completely dismembered her. He wrapped her in butcher's paper, put the butcher's paper in garbage bags, and then took her to a nearby park. So a neighbor sees this, but he's not seeing the body parts. He's thinking that this eccentric dude is like out in the garden and he's burying like new vegetables. He's thinking, oh, some new vegetables have, popped up overnight. He's got part of her buried. And like I said, he's got stuff on top of her. I don't know why I can't talk today. Anyway, the roots of the tomatoes that he planted on top of her ended up going down into the dirt and wrapping around the butcher paper that was around her body.
So he did plant vegetables, just used the vegetables as a disguise for where he hid the body.
Yes.
Ooh. I can't. That's going to be some weird vegetables.
So that's basically what the neighbor saw when he looked out, and he's like, oh, he's just being eccentric, Camille, burying these or planting these new veggies, when he was actually burying body parts.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, now he's got a missing wife. So he has to come up with an alibi. So he goes to the police station and he starts saying, my wife was hitting me. She abused me. And then she left by bus to Montreal, by the way.
Oh, obviously.
So, of course, because he files his complaint, the police issue an arrest warrant for Lise Roy, who they can't not find because
she's on the run.
She's supposedly on the run, but we know she's under the tomatoes in the backyard and she's never seen again. The only person who ever claims to have seen her again is Camille Cleroux, who says, oh, yeah, I saw her. She popped in for a visit. Not true.
She popped in for a visit. She came back to grab some stuff and then hit me again.
Right. At some point in time after this, Camille ends up serving prison time for assaulting a child.
So continuing on with his evil ways.
So Camille then meets 32-year-old Jean Rock, who she was, she had her baggage. She suffered from seizures and she had a lot of trouble with her family, getting into constant arguments with them. They met in June of 1992. So a couple of years after the death of his wife, he served some time, obviously not a whole lot of time, and then meets Jean,
who seems to be somebody who could be in a vulnerable position that he could take advantage
100%. So Camille was working as a dishwasher at a place called Mellows, which is a big time diner in Ottawa. The couple have a very stormy relationship. They break up, they get back together, they break up, they get back together. It doesn't help that not only is Camille emotionally abusive, he's also physically abusive. So finally, after a few years, like 9,
dang,
Jean decides, you know what? I'm done. So in the fall of 2003, she says, you know what? I can't do this anymore. We gotta end this. And under the guise of like trying to, talk and work things out, he takes her on a walk in the woods in Fairley Park. Well, while in the woods, he picks up a rock. He hits her in the head repeatedly. He then buries her in the park in a shallow grave. Well, now he's got to come up with another alibi. So what does he do? He pays a female acquaintance $10 to write a letter or write several letters under Jean's name.
Interesting.
In those letters, he has them written between the years of 2004 and 2010. So he sends 2 to 3 letters a year between that time. The forger, who I don't know, I couldn't find out their name.
Canada doesn't have great records right now, is what I'm learning from this story, is that we're missing some details here.
Well, Canada. And I'm sure they didn't, he didn't name them, and they're not gonna be like, yeah, I'm the forger for this serial killer.
It's true.
So this forger, as Jean Rock, claims that they had left Camille behind and they were living a new life with a trucker named Pierre. And also, she writes in these letters, I don't want any personal contact with you, her family. I'm just keeping you updated via these letters.
Yeah. Don't look for me. Don't call me. I'll call you. I'm with Pierre the trucker, and we are enjoying all of the truck stop coffee.
Pierre and I are living life on the road. Right.
It's very romantic.
Over the course of the 6 years, this forger makes up an entire imaginary life for Jean Rock based on Camille Cleroux's instructions. Not only is she living the life with Pierre on the road, they end up having a daughter and 2 sons, even putting photos of these supposed children in the letters.
Oh, wow.
So thanks to these letters, Jean is declared missing. One of the letters from 2004, she announced the birth of her son, John. The letter stated that he was 7 pounds and had black hair and brown eyes and Indian skin, like you, Daddy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So basically what they just need to do is find anybody that's like a frustrated novelist that was friends with Camille.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Somebody was taking this
Because
this letter writing
they
campaign.
took it
Just
and
they
ran.
ran. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Now remember, initially, when in 2003 is when he killed her. Well, in 2004, I think he's like, she's in a park in a shallow grave. I don't know, maybe somebody's gonna find her. So he goes back to the site, he digs her up, and then reburies her in a different part of the park. A couple years later, in 2006, he gets the same fear again. She's in a shallow grave in the park. Somebody might find her. I need to dig her up and rebury her. So he does that exact same thing. Well, when he digs her up in 2006, he notices that some animals had tried to um, feast on her
Yeah.
bones.
Get to they were like, hey, what's this smell?
Right. So he gets an onion mesh bag from a shopping store, from a grocery store, and he puts her in that. And he takes her to the Rideau Canal. He weights the bag down with some stones, throws her in the water.
Because he doesn't want the animals to dig her up, and then she would be found, and the jig would
Exactly.
be up.
Well, he probably should have left her where she was. He shouldn't have killed her in the first place. But I'm just saying, to
And
not be
also,
discovered.
like, park life in Canada must be so much different that dudes just randomly digging isn't seen as a big deal.
You're right about that.
Like that, like the
Because
fact that
if
he,
I'm like hiking and I see a dude just randomly digging up something in the woods, first of all, I'm not going to be hiking in the woods by myself, but I would be like, that's real fishy. I'm calling the police.
yeah, I mean, I guess if he had like some sort of like reflective vest and a like clipboard, I'd be like, oh well, city worker.
I don't know if he thought that far in advance.
Yeah.
So again, like I said, he weights her down and he buries her. Well, in October of that year, her remains are discovered because it's a canal, which means there's some drainage sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So the canal was drained, her body was found, but she wasn't identified immediately. She wasn't identified until 2012.
Wow. So the second time he dug her up was 2006. So it took 6 years for her remains to identify.
Uh-huh.
Oof.
Yep. So now remember, she's living this secret life from 2004 to 2010. He's got these letters
supposedly.
Supposedly
Secretly. Yeah.
Well, I guess in 2010, he must have just said, okay, you know what? I'm tired. I'm moving on. Because in 2010, he's living in a high-rise building in Hetherington in Ottawa, where he's neighbors with 64-year-old Paula LeClaire. Well, I think he becomes so obsessed with Paula and this apartment that he forgets about Jean. So yeah. Camille was super envious of Paula's apartment because it had like a much nicer view and it's off of Fairley Woods, which if we think back, Fairley Woods is where Jean Rock was buried initially.
Oh, so he'd like to keep an eye out on it.
I guess he's like, he dug her up, but I guess he's like fond memories. I don't know. So of course she's got this great view of Fairley Woods. It's spacious. It's more spacious than his apartment. Her apartment was like 907. His was like 802. So it's it's up a little bit higher. So maybe that adds to the view. And then again, right. It's spacious. So he says to her, hey, let's swap apartments. And she's like, no. No. Oh, no.
How about no?
How about that's not happening?
Yeah.
So instead of taking no like a normal person, although I don't think a normal person would have asked, hey, can we swap apartments?
But yeah. Anyway. I mean, this is literally thou shalt not cover that. Maybe it's a neighbor's apartment.
Right. So he doesn't take that no very well. And he decides, oh, I'm going to have this apartment. So on May 20th of 2010, he asks Paula, hey, Paula, would you like to go on a walk with me to Fairley Woods? He lures her into the woods. And then, of course, he kills her.
Of course.
He had already prepared a shallow grave in Fairley Woods, close to some old train tracks.
Wow.
So when they get to the site, he pulls out the 6-inch knife, that he had taken from the restaurant Mellows, where he's a dishwasher. He stabs Paula in the back, and then he reverts to his old MO, picks up a rock, and hits her in the back of the head.
Goodness. Well, it worked the first 2 times.
So he buries Paula, but before burying her, he takes her keys, and then he buries her. He returns to her apartment, and within hours, he's packed up her belongings and thrown them into a dumpster.
Wow.
Like,
Dude
he wasted
really wanted that
no time.
Yeah.
He really wanted that apartment. So, of course, people are like, hey, where's Paula? Because now he's in her apartment.
Yeah,
Like,
kind of obvious that something weird is going on here.
Right. So people are like, well, what happened to Paula? And he's like, oh, yeah, she won the lottery and she's vacationing in Disney World in Florida.
Yeah, just nonstop, just at the Magic Kingdom all the time.
Right. He's like, then she's gonna, when she comes back after her, long vacation, she's gonna move in with her son in his apartment.
Yeah. So I'm just, house sitting.
She gave it to me when she won the lottery. She said, here, take this apartment. It's yours.
I know how much you covet it.
So on May 29th, almost 10 days later, Paula's son, Andre, hadn't heard from his mom in a while. So he stops by the apartment, the son that she's supposed to move in with when she comes back from Walt Disney World.
Doesn't know anything about this plan.
So he's not heard from his mom from a while. So he drops by her apartment to check on his mom. He has the spare key because remember, Camille stole Paula's keys. So Andre's got a spare key. He opens the door. And of course, as soon as he walks in, he notices, hey, wait a minute. Something's not right here. This is not my mom's stuff.
Right.
So as he's like standing in the doorway and it's all hitting him, it's almost like a movie. Camille comes out of the elevator. And
sees him standing in the doorway. Puts 2 and 2 together.
Well, Andre is like, what's going on? And Camille is like, oh, no. Your mom, she gave me the place. And he was like, so this is my place now. Can you give me that key back?
Just going for it.
Yeah. So Andre's like, yeah, my mom didn't give you this apartment. Okay, I'll be back. So Andre immediately goes to the police department and he's like, look, here's what's going on. This is my mom's place. This guy, I've got the spare key. I haven't heard from her. I went to check on her. I go in, his stuff's not there. Now he's saying my mom gave him the apartment. She's nowhere to be found. And now he's asking me for the spare key back. Of course, my mom would not do any of this without telling me.
Right.
So of course, police start to investigate and Camille realizes, oh crap, I'm being investigated. So to try to put them off the trail, he gets his forger friend, who's probably an aspiring author, like you said.
Right. To write some more.
To write another letter to Andre Leclerc, Paula's son, saying, oh, no, listen, I did give him the part. I actually did give him the apartment. You got to leave him alone now, okay? I gave him the apartment. Leave him alone.
Yeah. Signed, your mom.
Right. So real convincing, right?
Right, yeah.
So in an attempt to convince the police that, oh, no, it says your mom. It says to Andre from your mom. Here's the letter.
From your mom. It's clearly from your mom.
Camille goes and he meets with the police. He talks to Detective John Manette of the Ottawa Police Department. He's like, look, here's the situation. She gave me the place. Here's the letter. It's a 2-hour interview. And at the end, he says, yeah, she didn't give it to me. I killed her.
Oh, so after 2 hours, he finally cracks.
Yeah, after 2 hours, he cracks.
Oh, wow.
So he's charged with murder. And of course, they start investigating him and his past. And they discover that both of his wives had vanished in a suspicious manner. In June of 2010, after hearing about Camille's charges, a former neighbor, remember the neighbor, contacts police. And he says, yeah, there was one time that I thought I heard screams from his place, but I wasn't quite sure. And I saw him burying some things, but I thought it was just vegetables. Maybe not. Take that information and do with it what you will.
Yeah, probably should have told you this 18 years ago. My bad.
Right. I didn't know. I wasn't sure. So, of course, the police are like, hey, Camille, what's up with this? this is what we're hearing, what's going on. And he admits that he killed both of his wives. So on June 25th of 2010, he's charged with first-degree murders of Jean Rock and Lise Roy.
And they hadn't even found Jean's body yet.
Mm-mm. But all
she doesn't get found until 2012.
Right.
His confession.
All they needed was his confession. So his old home, they excavated his home in October of 2011, and some of Lisa's remains were found in the tomato garden. Other remains were found at Fairley Park. Her skull, unfortunately, was never recovered. They think that it was buried somewhere in Hetherington Park.
This would seem to reason that for 18 years, those tomato plants produced fruit.
Can you imagine that?
I'm sick to my stomach right now thinking about it.
So shortly after the remains were found in the canal, so of course we know the remains that were found in the canal. Now he has confessed to the murder of Jean Rock, and her body is finally able to be identified. So of course he's got to go to trial, and he sits in the trial. He's completely emotionless while all of the details of his horrific crimes are described in court. At one point, Jean Rock's father ended up suffering a stroke as a result of what he heard in court and had to be escorted out. And he kept muttering under his breath, "I'm going to kill that monster that took away my daughter and the other two women."
That's fair.
Camille Cleroux pleads guilty to all 3 counts of murder. First count, first degree, and then second count is second degree murder. 2 counts of second degree murder. So it's 1 count of first degree murder, 2 counts of second degree murder. He's sentenced to life in prison with a chance of parole after 25 years. Well, during his sentencing trial, Justice Lynn Ratushny said that he deserved nothing less than to be in custody for the rest of his life, with the families of the victims now being able to rest easy, knowing that their daughter's killer would never be released. And in fact, he will never be released because Camille Cleroux died from apparent natural causes at the Pacific Institute and Regional Reception Center in Abbotsford, Canada, at the age of 67 last year in January. And there you go. That is the wild story of Camille Cleroux.
And if I am a betting man, he wrote all the letters himself, just like left-handed.
You think so? You don't think he hired someone? You think he had?
I think he did it himself. He was an aspiring novelist, and this is the only way he could tell the stories he wanted to tell. It's just a better story. Sorry. Because otherwise, there's some like real creepy lady out there writing like cover letters for this.
Can you imagine? Twice. Like you see this on the news, and you're like, I mean, you would never come forward because you helped him in the commission of his crimes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know if that would be considered a, accessory after the fact style thing, but
I mean on some level, you would think so, because it's like, you didn't even ask, why am I forging these letters for this person?
Yeah. And if that's why I feel like it had to be him, because I feel like somebody would have come forward and been like, I didn't know, but here's my story. So,
or
interview me.
Yeah. Sold it.
That's why I think it was just probably Camille with his left hand. Then he was like, well, I don't want anybody to know that was me because I have really bad handwriting. So he copped to everything else, but he didn't cop to that because he was embarrassed about his handwriting.
Oh, but there you go. That is the story of Camille Cleroux. That's the B-side.
So for the A-side today, it's interesting that your story mentioned a couple of dates that also pop up in my story. So that is about the only overlap whatsoever between the A-side and the B-side today. But you mentioned 1987, and that's where part of the A-side starts today. But the A-side, really, this topic started when I was lamenting a while ago, and I think we've talked about it on air a couple times, where I feel like there's so many older series that you can't find. They used to be on Netflix or Hulu, and they've all, like, everything's got their new, their own content. So the older stuff seems to get pushed off of, your Amazon Primes and Hulu and Netflix. Some shows that I want to find, I just cannot find. And I was complaining about this, I think on the episode at one point, just referencing some other stuff. And somebody messaged me and said, hey, have you checked out Tubi? and this is going to sound like a commercial for Tubi, and I wish it was, because then we'd be getting paid. But I had never really looked into it. There's so many different additional streamers now. Like we've talked about, like Freevee and Tubi, and there like was IMB TV, which turned into Freevee. It seems like every time I boot up my Roku or the Amazon Prime TV, there's another streaming service that I have never heard of. But I dove into Tubi and was super excited to find a lot of stuff for free. And you can even just go on there and watch it. There's commercials, but you can go in there and watch it without even registering. You can register if you want to put together a list, your own watch list or something. But to find some of the old, fun sitcoms that I have not been able to find anymore on the Netflix and the Hulus, like they've got like the Jeffersons and What's Happening, like the original Batman series, Briscoe County Jr., which I could only find on DVD for so long. I mean, Soap, just some really great stuff. And so I've been, as Brooke, as I mentioned to you, I've been falling down this black hole because there's just so much to watch. And every time I'm scrolling through, I'll see something else. I was like, oh man, I can't believe that somebody actually has Garfield and Friends, the entire series, available for me to just binge, which is fairly ridiculous that I would want to do, but it's something that's happened in the last week. The Dick Van Dyke Show, going all the way back, like Dean Martin doing Celebrity Roast, the Beverly Hillbillies. So all these Nick at Night shows and things that I watched in the 90s on syndication are available. And as I'm pouring through them, I've stumbled upon a series that I used to love that I didn't realize was as short as it was. It was only around for 3 years. So you mentioned 1987 and 1990 in our story on the B side. This series ran from 1987 to 1990, was then canceled, even though it had seemingly good ratings. But most of the people in this comedy then would go on to have other hits on NBC as well, and was going through some of the reporting from the cancellation at the time. And of course, we're looking at things that have now been archived that were in print and that were not online in 1990 or 1989. Some of it said that there was a new head of the studio who wanted to go in a different direction. Some said that it was a question of Nielsen's ratings not showing, their overall numbers are good, but they weren't hitting the right demographics. But nonetheless, it lasted way less time than I thought it was. And that was 1987's American sitcom, My Two Dads.
Can I just tell you, I've been watching that on Tubi as well.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Like, we didn't plan this. We did not plan this at all. That's awesome. So I grew up watching, it was, I don't know if I saw it in the first run from 87 to 90, but I know I watched it in syndication because in 1992 it went to USA. So it was definitely on USA. And I am a huge Paul Reiser fan. I love his style of comedy. I love Mad About You. And I never put two and two together in that in 1986, Paul Reiser plays the evil character on Aliens who basically gets everybody killed because he works for the corporation. It's Carter Burke, who's the guy who's trying to capture the alien for the corporation and basically gets everybody killed because he doesn't tell them they're going there to get the alien. And that starts the whole process with, it's in the walls, man. So somebody saw that corporate stooge in Aliens and said, what if we just took this character but put him in, the mid 80s as a investment banker, and his former best friend and he are now having to raise a daughter that might be one of their children. Because it's basically the same character, but way more likable and no aliens. So it was very strange that somebody saw that and said, okay, let's turn this into a sitcom. It ran from September of 1987 through April of 1990. And of course, it focuses around Paul Reiser and Greg Evian, who are best friends in college, go to Palm Beach and fall in love with the same girl. That ruins their friendship. They don't talk to each other for 12 years, 13 years, until they are called into the judge's chambers to read this will that they have both been given joint custody of the entire estate of the woman that they fell in love with 13 years prior. The judge is played by the incredible Florence Stanley, who has got this just sort of dry wit. She's one of those character actors where you would like recognize her right away, but then have to take time to have to figure out exactly where else she was in anything. She was at Barney Miller. She was on Nurses after My Two Dads. So she's been around for a very long time, and she's outstanding. In fact, it makes so much sense that like when they do the first episode and you think, okay, you're never going to see this judge again, she becomes a recurring character throughout the the entire season. Even goes on to buy the building that they all live in. And you've got the landlord slash judge slash social worker slash girl talk voice of reason. Oh, she's so good. And the one-liners, the funniest part is that Greg Evigan, who is the supposed to be the artist, hunky guy, doesn't really get any of the jokes. Like he's always the setup for the joke, and it's Paul Reiser who just gets to sit there and drop one-liners and responses through the entire series. They're especially good in the first season. It seems like they tried to tone down snarkiness a little bit later seasons, maybe as the character evolved, but the first season is got some great one-liners. And of course it is a mismatch of the sort of that odd couple where you've got these two people that are very different, but now they have to work together, they live together. And then also a classic parenting sitcom where you've got all the tropes of, the first date and, boys being interested in her. There is a ridiculous, the first date episode has a ridiculously adorable, like 10-year-old Giovanni Ribisi in it.
Oh,
yes.
Who
would go on to be a recurring character, but I had no idea. I never put two and two together that was Giovanni Ribisi that I know from, tons of shows now, but this is him at, 10 years old. I mean, everything from, he was in Saving Private Ryan.
Oh my gosh, I just thought of something.
Oh, yes.
Giovanni Ribisi and Paul Reiser have another connection.
Which one is that?
So Paul Reiser, Helen Hunt, Mad About You, Friends, a spinoff of Mad About You, Giovanni Ribisi on Friends.
Yes. Well, there you go. So it's that 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
All over the place. And I've binge watched the entire first season now in the last week, and it has made me so happy to just have sort of this silly sitcom with problems that really aren't that big, but are kind of universal, like how do these two people that don't really like each other get along, and where do they end up living, and how are they going to figure out, co-parenting a child. And it makes me kind of sad that it only ran for 3 seasons, but it is amazing to see that both Paul Reiser, who would go on to be, have a great run on Mad About You, which is one of my favorite sitcoms of all time, and that is the one down. I was actually searching for Mad About You on Tubi when I stumbled upon My Two Dads, because Mad About You is not on there. It is still hard to find. So that one is a little frustrating. And then Stacey Keenan, who plays the 12-year-old precocious daughter who the two dads have to take care of, would then go on herself to be the teenage daughter on Step by Step for another 9 seasons.
Oh, yeah.
So you had this, 3-season show that was not considered a huge hit. But if you look at some of the numbers, like the ratings it was getting back then, because there were so fewer options, now it would be considered a huge hit. It wasn't like the top 20 ratings, but when you've only got basically 3 major networks, the top 20 is not nearly as impressive as it would be later on. So it's one of those shows that you can watch for free. You can enjoy pretty much the entire time. And if you liked Mad About You, or you've enjoyed anything with Paul Reiser ever, this is a great, to see him kind of take the character that would become, and the antics and the comedic timing that would be the, heart along with Helen Hunt of Mad About You at a very early age it's a lot of fun. And you can totally see that this is kind of like, there would be no Mad About You or Step by Step. The success of those shows wouldn't have come without My Two Dads coming earlier on. So you could catch this on Tubi. I highly recommend it if you were looking for a palate cleanser from the stresses of modern 2022 life, to kind of go back. The clothing is amazing. That late 80s, early 90s, I don't know if it's just always supposed to be winter in this series, but Paul Reiser and Stacey Keenan are basically wearing giant sweaters in every episode. because for some reason that was the trend. And the side pony, it's a great little throwback. It's fun to watch. It's got some laughs. The one-liners are definitely worth it. And for my money, a free binge watch of My Two Dads is probably better than going out to the theater and spending $25 on some stale popcorn and watching a movie you may not enjoy nearly as much. So My Two Dads is amazing. There's tons of stuff on Tubi. I highly recommend checking it out. I was kind of shocked to learn how much, like I had forgotten that I had this basically giant crush on Stacey Keenan when I was a kid, because I watched My Two Dads and I watched Step by Step, and she was kind of the same character in both. So that was fun to remember, what it felt like to be a 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old kid watching My Two Dads back then, and kind of take that trip down memory lane. And it's definitely a much innocenter time in terms of some of the content. But like I said, it's a great palate cleanser. And if you like Paul Reiser and you haven't seen it in a while, then I would highly recommend checking it out. Man, the stumble disease for talking today has caught us both.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, it has.
Oh, and fun little thing that I forgot, that I guess I did maybe never knew at the time, but the catchy opening theme song called "You Can Count on Me" was actually performed like so many 90s sitcoms. Like we think of Frasier sings the opening song. Greg Evigan actually sang the opening theme song for My Two Dads as well. You Can Count on Me, which was a song that I didn't even remember that I remembered.
No matter what you do. Okay, sorry.
And one of the great themes, of course, is that the entire time you never find out which of the two dads is the biological dad. At one point, they, in later seasons, which I have not gotten to yet, they do take a paternity test, but it is burnt, like torn up and thrown away. So they don't know, because Nicole, played by Stacey Keenan, doesn't really want to know which one is her true dad. So I think it's neat that even over 3 years, they never, kind of got away from that idea that both of these guys are her dad, no matter whether or not it's biological or not.
See, I remember them taking the test. I don't remember them ripping it up. I guess I just, it's like one of the shows I flip through when I'm on Tubi.
Yeah, there's so much good stuff on there. And I feel very similar. And the great part, like 22 minutes an episode, there's a couple, because it's Tubi, there'll be a commercial or two, but you can burn through a season real quick on an afternoon when you're cleaning the house, or you've got other things going on, you're hanging out, watching, I watch 3 things at a time, but I had the soccer game on today with, the sound off, and I'm listening to My Two Dads, which is a strange combo for a visual and sound, but
it is.
Yeah, but definitely worth it out, and worth checking out. And all of Tubi, I feel silly I haven't found it before. Just the fact that I can go back and watch, Dick Van Dyke, just like it's, Nick at Night in the 90s, is a pretty awesome opportunity. But they got new stuff on there too. I mean, stuff from the 2000s, even some stuff into like, did you remember and I almost did this one, and maybe I'll do this as another episode, was the 2002 comedy action crime drama called Fastlane with Tiffany Amber Thiessen and Bill Bellamy.
No.
It was basically based off the success of Fast and the Furious. Basically this was like a knockoff, like crime show with 2 undercover detectives dealing with, with crime and fast cars. But it was Tiffany Amber Thiessen's first major post Saved by the Bell role, and definitely was. Oh, and speaking of weird connections, in one of the first episodes of season 1 of My Two Dads, the character or the actor that would go on to play Mozzie on White Collar shows up as a very young guy with hair, which threw me off completely, throwing a high school party in Willie Garson, of course, his name. He was also on Sex and the City. But it's always crazy to see somebody, totally different. It's like seeing Jason Alexander with hair in the slasher films that we talked about years ago in a former episode. It throws you off, but you're like, hey, I know that voice, I know that person.
Right.
So that's always fun to see as well.
I, you know what, the same as you, when it came up and I was like looking for something, because I put it on at night, like when I'm going to bed. So of course, I mean, I'm
Mhm.
watching it, but then I'm going, I'm falling asleep to it, kind of like you have it on in the background. And like the first initial couple of episodes, I was like, I forgot how much of a jerk Paul Reiser was in the beginning, but like he's funny.
Yeah, no, he's hilarious, but yeah, they're both. He's definitely like the same character from Aliens, just not with an evil alien trying to kill everybody, but sort of that like '80s corporate raider, like business guy that like wants to live in the $500 suits in the big apartment. And honestly, throughout the series, he has the most. His character has the most dynamic change,
Yeah, I would
going from
agree.
like
Yeah.
the upper east side to living in the loft and having to adjust his lifestyle. And it, spoiler alert, I do like that. As I've gone through and I've kind of read the synopsis for the last two seasons because I haven't gotten all the way through them. But spoiler alert, even though the series was canceled, the the series finale does tie everything up in a nice little bow, and I think it went the direction that it should have. Looking at the characters and how they evolved over the run of the show, and that knowing that ending and seeing the arc from the beginning
Mhm.
really made me enjoy that, even the small changes from the first season, uh, all that much more for Reiser's character. And like I said, he does a great job, and I could see why they were like, okay, even if we cancel this series, we're going to take you and Stacey Keenan and put you in your own vehicles, and it's going to be on NBC, must watch TV on Thursday nights for the next 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it. Good job. Well done.
Well, thank you. I just think it's hilarious that we're both just randomly watching My Two Dads.
I know. I know. That's
Like,
so funny.
is this like when people are spending a lot of time together and this is our entertainment cycle is syncing?
If you start watching true crime docs, I know we're really in sync.
Hey, I watched that the Manti Te'o one recently,
Oh
and
my
then
gosh.
so and I'm
Oh,
that was really interesting. And there's this new one that I just saw a preview for called it was the guy who was behind the McAfee's spyware
oh,
stuff.
I haven't
Evidently,
seen that one.
yeah, this guy goes like crazy and like is on the run, and he gets a uh like a John McAfee was his name. Gets a film crew to follow him, and it's just seems just like crazy stuff that is just coming out. It's like going wild, like Wild or something. The Wild Life of John McAfee or something. I have to find it here, but that one looks really good too. So Running with the Devil, the Wild World of John McAfee on Netflix. So that is in my queue.
Oh,
So yeah, I'm already watching true crime docs. So our entertainment cycles have completely
we
synced.
have completely synced.
Yeah.
There it is. All right. This has been episode 107. Thank you so much for joining us.
And if you'd like to check out more of our content, or if you stumbled upon this and need to subscribe, go to our website, asidebsidepodcast.square.site. You can find all of your favorite streaming services where you can subscribe to us on all of them and rate and like and share. You can find merchandise. You can find links to all of our information. So I had way too many links for My Two Dads. So if you want to learn a ton, if you like original
You want to
reviews
learn
from back in the
every
90s,
single thing about My Two Dads?
yeah,
All the
you want to
links
fall
are there.
down that you want to fall down that rabbit hole with me, it'll all be up there, and Brooke has all of her sources on there as well. And of course, you can go to buyusacoffee.com, do A-Side B-Side podcast, buy us a coffee. We appreciate that. We also appreciate that, which all the kids are just shorting appreciate to appreciate now. I don't know. Yeah, I appreciate that. You can check that out using shorter words. And yeah, thank you for all of your feedback. I can't even remember who suggested to me to check out Tubi, but somebody was like, hey, you should check out Tubi. This is a good option. And I was like, that's great. I should really write this down. And it took me like 3 months to actually do it. So that's why I can't remember who mentioned it. But thank you. You know who you are. For suggesting that to me. And if you have topics or shows or streaming services or books or music or anything that you think would be interesting for us to dive into, I am an insomniac. I don't sleep, so I got plenty of time on my hands. So let me know, and I will love to dive into that. And Brooke has a entire pamphlet or what? No, like dossier, manila folder, notebook full of stories that she's working on. But there's always room for more. So
I do.
send us your ideas.
Awesome. All right, there you go. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Brooke.